YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Rob, aka DJville, back with another video. And you know what? It's time for a vintage review. Let's do it. Okay, so basically I said I need to do a review on some fragrances that I've got in my collection already that I've never reviewed. So I looked through the shelves and ran across this fragrance and I thought this would be a good one to review. And this is Gianfranco Ferre for Man. Okay, this is a 1986 release. For the collectors out there, you would already know this, but the folks that are watching this and they're unfamiliar with the fragrance, this is not the actual original presentation. The original bottle looked like this, but the middle part and the top part was glass, like a brown glass. So that's what you want to check for if you're trying to, go back and get this bottle. But I must say, this is the latter bottle and the juice is cool with this one. So it's up to you. But if you're, a purist, you're going to probably want to go back and get the original bottle. But enough about the bottle. Fragrance. This is considered a cheaper fragrance. Now, some may argue it's not a cheaper because it doesn't have labdanum in the base, but it does have patchouli, it does have oak moss. It's got some of the typical players in a cheaper. It's got lemon, it's got carnation, it's got a few other floral notes in it. It's kind of got that Mediterranean feel, so to speak, kind of like thick, so to speak, but it goes through stages. So this is what the fragrance kind of starts off with. For the new school folks, you might not appreciate this. It may be hard to get into it, but the initial spray is this really heavy, pungent, strong blast. It's kind of like slightly herbal, very peppery, true to the day from when the fragrance came out, 86. Kind of the hairy chested, so to speak, vibe. But if you can get past that, the dry down on this fragrance is great. So it kind of starts off like that, but then a lot of the pungent, that's really strong blast of pepper begins to die down, and then it begins to balance itself out. Some of the florals come to the top. It's not, overly floral at all. It's got some floral notes, and they kind of balance out with the pepperiness and the lemon note. And then it eventually gets to a point where it's this really refined, soapy-like, masculine, dry down, but a nice, solid woods base, but it's got the oak moss in the base that kind of, keeps it in where it's supposed to be. And it's a fragrance that is spoken very highly of. It doesn't have any issues with projection or longevity. Really, this is a fragrance that you don't want to spray more than 2 sprays, in my honest, humble opinion. If you want to go more than that, feel free, but that's how I would wear this. So do a little research, go online, check it out for yourself. This is a fragrance that's highly spoken of. A lot of people really highly regard this fragrance, and the price is going up. I wasn't really aware of that. I think when I copped this bottle, I paid about 45 bucks. And I can tell you, when I ordered it, I thought I was getting the original bottle. I got this one in the mail, and I immediately contacted the party and was like, hey, you sent me the wrong bottle. And they told me, hey, we thought you liked this better because this is a newer bottle, not really knowing that I'm a collector and I wanted the original. And they offered to, do an exchange, and I would have to send it back. And I just didn't want to go through the hassle, so I never sent it back. And I kind of put this on the back of my shelf, and it's been sitting there. So broke it out, and here's the review. I didn't have this fragrance back in the day because I had a few fragrances that kind of fit, what this fragrance did. Like I had Bijoux for Men, I had Fendi Pour Homme, and I had Tuscany by Aramis. They all kind of sit in that same vein, so to speak. So this was really a no-go for me. I didn't really need another fragrance that was kind of like a formal, really strong, masculine, classic fragrance. So I never really got it, but in searching, like I often do, looking at different old school fragrances, this one popped up and I was like, oh snap, let me cop it. So that's why I have it. Okay, so Gianfranco Ferre for Man. This is a fragrance, if you're a collector, you definitely want to check out. I'm assuming most collectors know about it. If you don't, do your research, check it out, see if you like it. All right. Second fragrance is a fragrance that until recently, I totally forgot that I had this fragrance back in '92. Kind of need to frame the story. So just like now, you can kind of look at the fragrance game and see, like, a lot of the blue fragrances are kind of what is being done. It's what's in, it's what's now. Bleu de Chanel, Sauvage, Dylan Blue, etc. That's kind of where fragrance is going. Well, if you go back to '92, when this fragrance was released, I had a lot of classics in my collection. Not even classics, just like, I think, legendary or landmark fragrances. I had Chanel Egoiste, I had Equitas by Alain Delon, I had both of the Halston Z14 112, I had Nina Ricci Club, Fendi Pour Homme, like I stated. I had quite a few fragrances like that, but I was also starting to open up to a lot of the newer, sweeter, fresher fragrances that were coming out. Like I had the original Liz Claiborne for Men, which is kind of had the abstract style bottle with the orange-like cap. I had Passion by Elizabeth Taylor, and I also had Fahrenheit, but this is like during my college years, I had two roommates, and they had Cool Water, they had Eternity, they had Escape, and that's kind of like what was the new stuff that was coming in. The fragrances were becoming a little bit sweeter, a little fresher, more casual, more laid back, and that was the vibe. Well, I was looking for something that was kind of still different, and I ran across this fragrance in like either fall '92, spring '93, and this fragrance is from Pablo Picasso. It's called Minotaure. Really cool bottle, all right? Really cool bottle. So this fragrance is considered like an Oriental fragrance, and it's always a fragrance for me that was really unique compared to anything that was pre-'92 and anything that was kind of current for that time coming out. It sat in its own lane. It was totally different. It was different in the sense that it had, well, the opening, it had like this fruity kind of nuance where to me, I always thought it smelled like apple. Then it also had this like sweet vanilla / tonka accord, which kind of felt fuzzy for some reason. It always felt fuzzy, but then in the base, it had like this milky sandalwood vibe. And in the middle, it kind of had like a little bit of a floral note where it had a little bit of rose, a little bit of jasmine. I know it sounds, fuzzy and milky, don't really sound like something you've really smelled before. Plus, it had this little like plastic like nuance to it that I kind of thought was just a bottle at first, but you spray it on skin and the plastic note was still there. So all of those things mixed together made something, in my opinion, that was pretty interesting. Performance-wise, Minotaure was always a fragrance that kind of sat somewhere around the 4 or 5 hour mark with moderate projection. So it was a fragrance that I do recall I would have to reapply. I remember going out on the weekend and maybe being out for a little bit, coming back, and I couldn't really smell it anymore, and I would respray it, not really knowing if other people were really smelling it or not smelling it, but if I couldn't smell it, I kind of felt like, it had went dead, and I would reapply it. I will say this, if you are looking to cop this fragrance, you definitely want to look for Cosmere. And that's the parent company or the distributor for the fragrance from back in the day. They did a lot of the classic vintage fragrances, and they did the older version. I know they redid it, reformulated the fragrance at a later time, and I don't think it performed the same. And it wasn't really a beastly fragrance to start off with. So just so you know, Cosmere is what you want to look for. There's only one fragrance that I recall that was similar to this fragrance that came out in about like '95, '96, and that was a fragrance by Nicole Miller. Nicole Miller for Men. Now this one is a tester. It had like a top that was the same color, that was kind of tall and square. This is the only fragrance that kind of smelled similar to Minotaure, but if you go and you smell this fragrance, trust me, there's nothing today that's totally like this. If you're a collector, or even if you're not a collector and you just want something that's a little bit different to have on the shelf to add to your fragrance wardrobe, check out this one, all right? Minotaure, Pablo Picasso. All right, so there you have it, guys. My two fragrances, two vintage fragrances back to back. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. If you're watching and you've never subscribed to the channel, I would appreciate your subscription. If not, thank you anyway. I hope everybody stays safe, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.